Hello, Yates County and beyond. Welcome back to another episode of Invasive Species Friday. Through these short weekly podcasts, we at the Yates ACE hope bring you information about the invasive species you may see around this county. So let's get growing with this week's invasive plant, the giant hogweed. Native to the region of Eurasia between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, giant hogweed came to the U.S. as a cultivated plant. One of the first plantings in North America was actually near Highland Park in Rochester. It's been used as a garden showpiece, a substantial pollinator food source by beekeepers, and when powdered, the dried seeds are used as a spice in Iranian cooking. Unsurprisingly, the giant hogweed escaped cultivation and is now found in many counties around the state, including all of western and central New York, and in 16 other states and parts of Canada. A member of the carrot family, giant hogweed spreads easily and is common along roads, streams, and ditches. It has a thick, bright green stem with purple splotches that can be 2 to 4 inches in diameter and is covered in thick white hairs. The leaves are compound, lobed, and deeply incised, growing up to 5 feet wide. At the base of each leaf stalk is a thick circle of white hairs. The white flowers bloom in late June through mid-July and grow in umbrella-shaped clusters up to 2.5 feet wide. The plant as a whole can be anywhere from 7 to 20 feet tall. There are several plants that resemble giant hogweed, though none quite reach its impressive stature. So let's go through the commonly mistaken plants and how to tell them apart. Giant hogweed is often called Queen Anne's lace on steroids. Queen Anne's lace has similar flowers, but the clusters are umbel, meaning they spring from a common center and form a flat surface since the stalks are nearly equal length. The center flower of the Queen Anne's lace is typically a deep purple, and when the plant fruits, the umbel becomes concave. The leaves are more fern-like, and the entire plant is much smaller, only 1 to 3 feet tall. Cow parsnip has similarly structured white flowers, but is about half the size of the hogweed in all parts of the plant, and the stem has fine white hairs instead of thick, with no purple splotches. Poison hemlock has a similarly colored stem and similar flower clusters as the hogweed, and it can get up to 9 feet tall, but the leaves are small and glossy and fern-like, and the stem is smooth and waxy with no hair. Angelica can also be 9 feet tall, but the flowers are greenish-white and the stems are hairless and purple. Finally, wild parsnip only gets to be about 5 feet tall, the flowers are yellow, and the leaves are pinnate, and there's no purple or hair on the stem. Giant hogweed grows in dense patches, crowding out native species. Their large leaves shade out the surrounding plants and leave bare soil, leading to soil erosion, which is compounded by the hogweed's roots' inability to hold soil like native plants. On average, a single plant can produce 20,000 seeds, but some plants produce up to 100,000 seeds. The seeds are dispersed short distances by wind and longer distances by water. They can float for 3 days and survive in the soil for up to 10 years. Along the roadside, hogweed is normally spread by mowers and construction equipment. Giant hogweed is one of the most dangerous invasive species we're going to talk about on this program in terms of human health. For plants like poison ivy or poison oak, brushing the leaves or stems releases an oil that causes an allergic reaction in most people. Giant hogweed is a little different. The clear, watery sap of the plant is released when the stem, leaves, root, flower, or seeds is broken or crushed. When the sap comes into contact with moist skin, and that skin is exposed to sunlight, a phototoxic reaction occurs. The irritation, called phytophotodermatitis, can begin to appear as soon as 15 minutes after contact. Without getting into technical terms, the sap contains a compound that makes the skin very sensitive to ultraviolet radiation and can result in severe burns, blistering, sores, and scarring. The first signs of hogweed photodermatitis are reddening of the skin and the onset of itching. Then burn-like lesions begin to develop, followed by large fluid-filled blisters. In very sensitive individuals, the reaction requires hospitalization. Normally, The initial irritation subsides within a few days, but the area can remain hypersensitive to ultraviolet light for years after, and the blisters can come back. If you see giant hogweed out on your adventures, do not touch it. If you do, you need to wash the skin immediately and thoroughly with soap and water. If you get the sap on you, it's important to cover the area to prevent sun exposure and get medical advice. If you think you may have been near a giant hogweed and have developed red skin and itchiness, go see a doctor. It's also possible for the sap to be transferred from the plant to an animal to a human. So if you see it in the area, it's important to get it taken care of as soon as possible. But how do you get rid of this nasty plant? There are mechanical and chemical eradication methods. Early application of either method is most effective, but needs to be performed extremely carefully, and protective clothing is a must, including when removing the gear after. Using a weed whacker or brush cutter can spray the sap 3 to 5 feet away, so do not use those tools. Pigs and cows can be used to manage, but not eliminate the plant. But don't forget, the sap can be passed along by them. The best method we suggest for dealing with giant hogweed, if you see it, is contact the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Take pictures of the entire plant, the stem, the leaves, the flowers, and the seeds, while staying a safe distance. Double check the ID with the common lookalikes on the DEC website, and then email them at ghogweed@dec.ny.gov or call the Giant Hogweed Information Line at 845-256-3111. You should be prepared with the photos, the street address or GPS coordinates of the infestation, and an estimate of how many plants there are. From April to August, DEC field crews will visit confirmed hogweed sites and use the appropriate control methods for that site, free of charge. The sites will be visited yearly until the infestation is eradicated, and then monitored for 3 more years. Check out the DEC website on giant hogweed for more information and to see pictures of the look-alike plants. And that's it for this week's episode of Invasive Species Friday. Next Friday, we'll be back with another phototoxic invasive that was actually mentioned in today's episode. Until then, we at the Yates CCE thank you for tuning in and supporting our fight against invasive species in Yates County.